Good evening. Good evening. I know that you've had a little bit to drink, so. Welcome to the 7th Annual Alumni Achievement Spirit Awards. Words cannot express how pleased I am to see alumni, trustees, sponsors, and other guests in person and not on an electronic screen. So before we renew friendships and enjoy dinner, which will be followed by the formal program, there are a few individuals whom I'd like to acknowledge. First, I want to thank our Board of Trustees who have given lots of their time, dedication, and commitment to our university, especially over the last 18 months. And I want to particularly thank and acknowledge our Chair of the Board of Trustees, Mike McNamara. Mike? Also want to acknowledge the Chair of our Academic Affairs Committee, Nancy Sussick. Nancy? And I would also like to introduce a couple of other former trustees, one of whom is our former chair of the board, Mr. William Young. Bill? And we also have another former trustee, Derek Kuzak. Derek, I know you were out here someplace. And then I'd also like to recognize a few of our religious sponsors who are here. You know, this university would not be the university that it is without the Sisters of Mercy and the Jesuits. And so I want to acknowledge Sister Maria Klosowski, who is here. And also Sister Judy Mauk, who's a retired professor. And Sister Judy? And our two Jesuits, someone whom everybody knows, Father Jerry Kavanaugh, professor of business. And also Father Pat Kelly, who has joined us for the last couple of years and one of our alum as well. I want to thank them for all of their ongoing support and guidance of the university, and particularly the mission of our university. Tonight's dinner is a celebration of alumni, but I thought you might like to know that this semester we enrolled our largest freshman class in 12 years. 565 students, and 1/3 of those 565 students are first-generation students, like many of the ones that we've enrolled over the last 10 years. Our enrollment is over 5,200 this year, and that includes more than 200 students in a Chinese program that we actually started at least started to get approval for 7 years ago, and now they are in their second year, and this is our Hubei Institute of Technology, and the students are studying in Wuhan, China. This is also a very important year because our endowment is now $95 million, and 10 years ago our endowment was $25.6 million. That 360% increase is primarily due to the enormous support of many alumni like you, as well as our corporate partners, foundations, and friends. And much of the university's endowment growth has come from alumni, 77% of whom contributed to our successful $115 million comprehensive campaign that we celebrated just 2 years ago in this very museum. So thank you for all of your support. I also want to let you know that the support from that particular campaign is providing assistance for many of those students whom I just mentioned, students in the form of scholarships, grants, as well as support for our academic programs. And that's been extremely important to the revitalization of our university. And speaking of revitalization, I hope that many of you have had the opportunity to come on campus and to see the concluding work of the expansion and renovation of our student union. That work will be finished hopefully within about 4 months. Like everybody else, we have had a few delays in terms of getting equipment and some of the particular materials that we need. But just a couple of days ago, they were putting in the windows, which is a great sign that soon our students will have that facility in order to be able to enjoy, much like the other campus facilities. Immediately after the last campaign, we began a $50 million bridge campaign exclusively for infrastructure and for the upgrade of our facilities that have been there for 94 years. Earlier today, I was at a streetscape opening for the McNichols Street between Livernois and Wyoming. And I recounted the story that almost 100 years ago, or exactly 100 years ago, there was a university president by the name of Father John McNichols. And Father McNichols was president from 1921 to 1932. It is he who's responsible for the McNichols campus expansion of the university. And on October the 9th, 1927, 94 years ago, almost to the day here, that campus was blessed and dedicated, and Father McNichols was the president of the university at that time. When he passed away in 1932, that street was renamed to McNichols. So you'll hear people talk about it at 6 Mile and McNichols. So the university's imprint is very much on the neighborhood, and I can't thank you enough for all of your support. So as we begin dinner, I want you to make sure that you have a wonderful time. We'll be back with the program very soon, and we'll tell you a little bit about our honorees. One of our honorees, unfortunately, came down with influenza, Ben Johnson, so he's not here tonight, but he wishes he would be here. But we still are going to honor him and recognize him along with the other 6 honorees. So we are hopeful that in the spring we'll be able to celebrate the grand opening of the Student Union building, and hopefully many of you will be there. It's now my pleasure to introduce once again Sister Judy Mock, who will give the blessing of the food. Sister Judy?
Not sure why I ended up in the back 40, but anyway. Thank you. So let us take just a few seconds to sort of center ourselves after all that good news and draw our attention to what the food before us represents. Gracious God, as we gather to celebrate our Spirit awardees, it is fitting that we acknowledge you as the source and inspiration for their leadership and service. In the words of a poet friend, our awardees are bearers of the light, a symbol that was close to the heart of both St. Ignatius and Catherine Macaulay. The poet says, "Blessed are you in whom the light lives and the brightness blazes. It is like the fire of passionate leadership and compassionate service." As we pause before this meal, we thank you for your many gifts, especially our light bearers, as well as each of us gathered here to celebrate with them. We ask your blessing on the food before us. Bless those who have prepared it and serve it, as we remember at the same time the many in our world who will go hungry this night. May the nourishment we share this evening strengthen our commitment to service. In your name, amen.
Good evening, everyone. It is truly my pleasure to stand before you to recognize Joseph Coriaty, FAIA. Joe is the managing partner of Frederick, Fisher & Partners. His office is considered one of the premier firms in the United States for thoughtful and beautiful design, as well as for their exploration in reimagining and restructuring design offices to prepare and celebrate the next generation of architects. Joe has a wonderful ability to synthesize the ambition of big ideas with the day-to-day logistical needs. His significant global contributions are many. His awards are countless. It could be summed up by saying that he was inducted into the College of Fellows of the AIA, the American Institute of Architects, in 2017, which is an award bestowed to only 3% of all American architects. As we view Joe's achievements as an alumnus, it is important to note that the School of Architecture and Community Development sees this as twofold. First, as I mentioned, his achievements include being a dynamic and thoughtful professional working around the world. But second, and perhaps even more importantly, when we think of alumni spirit, Joe has achieved so much for our school as well. He is a consistent advocate for our core values of social and environmental justice, coupled with student-centered education. Joe's impact on our school has a ripple effect that goes back and forward. But perhaps the best way to express this is to point out and to acknowledge that he has the 3 living deans of the School of Architecture and Community Development here tonight celebrating with him. Former deans Will Wittig and Steve Vogel are here tonight, and I am sure that they would say that this honor is long overdue. So it is truly my distinct pleasure to present this year's Alumni Spirit Award to Joseph Coriaty, FAIA. Help me celebrate Joe.
Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly, and the spiders from Mars. He played it left hand.
Good evening. Dean Dan Patera, that's a kind of a tough act to follow there. I'm not really sure who he was talking about. Maybe 50% of that was true. I'd like to thank my family here for supporting me, my wife Ann, my father-in-law and mother-in-law Jack and Carolyn. Jack Friedel, class of 1960. He'll be thrilled that he was mentioned. My brother George, who in Los Angeles, Nicholas, Tony, Sharon, and Al, and somewhere over there, I don't remember, Mary and her son, Stefan Singos, who is a third-year student, I think, in our School of Architecture. A couple of years ago, I had a chance to meet Dr. Garibaldi when he came to Los Angeles on a trip to visit. In the early years of growing up, I grew up here in Detroit. My family, my parents gave me a really great window into really understanding the city of Detroit, culture, and for me, and I've talked about this before when I had the opportunity to lecture at the school, this exposure to what I call the ingenuity of Detroit, which is something that it's not necessarily shared in a lot of places. And to have this event tonight in a place like the Henry Ford Museum and what you see around here is an important testimony to that. And I showed up, and I was saying this earlier to Dean Vogel, in 1974, late August, early September, as a freshman, and former Dean Vogel was my first-year design instructor. And I was very interested in becoming an architect, but naive beyond belief. And in 4 years, I learned about what not only architecture was, but those Jesuit values that were mentioned. And for me, it was call to action, understanding of classical studies, and maybe most importantly, participation. After going to University of Detroit Mercy, I ended up in Los Angeles to go to USC, and have spent the last 35 or 40 years building a family and a practice with a number of really wonderful people. We had the opportunity to work on a project in Flint, Michigan, the Flint Institute of Arts, and I had a chance to go visit Dean Vogel at that time, and he sent Father Gilbert Singera, who unfortunately was not able to be here tonight, as kind of an ambassador, and through that, I was able to reconnect with the school. One day I got a call, this is 2010, after the Haiti earthquake, asking me if I would travel with Father Singera to Haiti. And I thought, what am I going to do there? What do I have to offer? But we went and stayed in the Jesuit compound for 8 or 9 or 10 days. And it was a really important moment in my life, because we would sit around at night, and there were people from all over the world helping there. And understanding how the Jesuits were kind of curating that support of others in need became really significant to me, and led me to start to get more involved in other boards. After that, it was I was invited, I believe, by Dean Will Wittig to participate in I think it's the Dean's Advisory Council, which is really important. And to be able to participate at that time with Dean Wittig and now with Dean Patera, to shape architecture and education in a way to help students enter the profession. And it's the very least that we could do. And in closing, how do we help, and how does the School of Architecture and Community Development help to lead the education of students to tackle the issues of today? And when I'm here in Detroit, Ann and I were walking around, we're staying in the Detroit Athletic Club, and walking around downtown and seeing the energy of that, and seeing specific examples of how that's being applied. It's really wonderful and much needed. Thank you.
What a wonderful evening. First off, I'd like to thank the deans for all their wonderful comments as they introduced our awardees, and to the awardees for their wonderful and inspiring remarks. So I'd like us all to give them one grand Detroit Mercy round of applause. As I told you early on, this is a wonderful night for me. I also want to take this opportunity, in your booklet for this evening, we acknowledge previous awardees, and I know many of them are in the room. So I'd like to ask them to stand so that we can give past awardees of the Spirit Awards a round of applause as well. Don't be shy. I know you're here. So they're great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all that you've done for the university, for your communities, for your profession. We're so glad that you're here with us this evening as well. So we're drawing to a close for this evening, but I have to tell you, this is the start of a wonderful weekend for us at Detroit Mercy. Tomorrow is homecoming, and there is a long list of activities that we have planned. And so this is a great inaugural event for that weekend. And I have to acknowledge, as did Dr. Persiani, Peggy Pattison and her staff and others in advancement for all that they have done in alumni relations. So please, let's give them a round of applause for what a wonderful evening. It's going to be a great day tomorrow and wonderful weather, so please join us if you haven't already committed to do that. And as part of that celebration and to acknowledge our 2 founding orders, I do want to mention that tomorrow we will be celebrating in the College of Health Professions the 80th anniversary of Mercy College. Yes, 80 years, and so beginning in 1941. And so to our Sisters of Mercy that are here, as well as some of you that may have graduated from Mercy College. And we also ended this year the year of Ignatius. And so it has been an extraordinary year, and tomorrow will be kind of a capstone event to our fall homecoming, as well as those 2 very significant events for the Sisters of Mercy and for the Jesuits. So I encourage you to plan on coming to this event next year. I thank you for your engagement and participation and commitment. Plan on joining us in 2022. Please stay safe, remain well, drive home safely, and let's hear it for Detroit Mercy. One more time, come on. Thank you and good evening.